So, welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, just here on my own today. Today, we're taking a look at Combat Infantry from Columbia Games. Now, this one came out about a year ago, just over a year ago, 2017. I first played this at Gen Con last year. I actually played it with Tom Douglas, the designer. He taught me the game. We had a demo. They were running kind of just before it came out, and he was there with some of the people that regularly playtested it, and they were the ones showing it off. That was pretty cool to kind of learn it that way. I've had this one for a while and just played it a few times. Finally, just wanted to kind of sit down and let you know about Combat Infantry. It was by Columbia Games, and as you can imagine, block war game. That's kind of what they're famous for. That's their bread and butter, and this is no different. It is I don't think you couldn't say it was tactical in scale, because each block, is a squad. But it's organized by, there's three rifle squads in a platoon, and then you might have a heavy weapons team. They have a platoon commander, and you'll have 3 platoons in a company, and each of them has a platoon commander, and you'll have a company commander as well, he can activate any of the guys in his company, but he can also activate a good number of attached battalion assets as well. So if you've got battalion anti-tank weapons, heavy mortars, you've got engineers or flamethrowers coming in, those are all going to be, a lot of those are going to be attached to your company commander, just because he can command a lot of those. Normally, the other platoon HQs can't do as many, not as effective with those. But you get a good organizational feel from your force, even though it's just a small number of blocks that you have on the table. But I think you start to get into some really cool learning, because this is a very approachable and a very easy war game to pick up and to learn, but it's not necessarily easy to be good at, just because there's some really cool layers to this game, and the more you play it, the more you get into that, especially if you play the same person all the time, which I play with Grant all the time, so we kind of get into that. We get meta levels of our bluffing and combat actions and how we do things. I have tendencies in how I play. I know that I have those tendencies. He knows I have those tendencies. I know he knows. He knows I know. So then I'm trying to double and triple bluff, and we just get to. So that's one of the cool parts of having block war games. I have all my guys facing towards me. I know everything. He has all his guys facing towards him. He knows all of his stuff. But I have no idea what his is, and he has no idea what mine are. And that fog of war is something that they kind of preach at Columbia Games. It's a very important part of of combat, of military history. Is reconnaissance is never 100%. You never know entirely what you're going up against. You engage a unit here, you might know what they are. If they engage you, they kind of reveal themselves. Then they're going to stand back up, and you've no idea what they are anymore. So you get into some very, very interesting kind of situations in these styles of games. And I think this is a really good step up for newer wargamers from things like Axis and Allies and Command and Colors series, where you've got Memoir 44, that kind of stuff, where you've just got a bunch of dudes and hexes moving around. You're kind of learning a little bit of tactical play in that. Here you get that tactical play to it. It's a little bit deeper with all the different terrain types and how you're moving them, but you get the organization of a combat unit. You have to follow your chain of command in this one, but you also have the extra layers of of strategic thinking of, I'm going to move my guys over in this direction as a bluff and feint, and I might have just a couple really weak guys, and then I've got a huge force coming over here. You can hide that pretty decently in this with your unit composition and how you make up your forces, which I really enjoy. That's a fun part of block war games, trying to bluff your enemies. I love doing that. So I do recommend this for newer players. This is an easy place to get into, but if you're an experienced wargamer, I also recommend it because it's just an easy, fun wargame, right? This is a beer and pretzel style game. I feel like a lot of the block war games are, because you can't get, bogged down in all of the charts and minutiae, because they're not there. you're facing a huge line of blank blocks, and you're like, I'm pretty sure these guys were a rifle platoon that I attacked in a week, so we're hopefully going to attack there and hopefully get them out. The game, that's just such a fun feeling in a game where you just kind of go for it. Some games you like sitting there getting crushed if they're kind of operational games and you're on the losing side, or you're just trying to make odds happen. In this one, you're like, well, I got to take my objective, and I know what I have, and I've frankly got no idea what I'm going up against, but I got to do it because the game's going to end and I'm going to lose. So it keeps the game active. It keeps you proactive in trying to do what you need to do in the face of a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's a credit to Block War Games, a credit to this game, and it's just fun to have it on this scale, because so many Block War Games are big games, huge games, sometimes strategic level, but do a lot of operational stuff or just area movement. Like they have Richard III, which is the entirety of Great Britain, and it's divided up into counties, or at least large areas, all counties, and this block represents like an entire army that was raised by a particular lord, and he might have like 2 blocks, so they're huge numbers. I don't know if I've played a Block War game where a little block like this is a squad of like 9 or 12 riflemen, or a bazooka team, or a mortar team, or one block is a single tank, basically. I'm pretty sure it's a single tank. And having a Block War game at that scale was it was a new experience for me, and also a really cool and interesting one. Just because and it's, I don't know how much of it's like mental or psychological, the feel is different, right? Each time you turn that block, that's a couple of your 9 squad, becoming casualties, and that really hurts. Instead of it being kind of an abstracted, this is like an entire, division that I'm just turning. So it's at that scale, you don't think about it in the same way as, I've got 2 squads holding down this forest to, and they've got a kill zone on this crossroads. Like, they've got to do it. I just love this scale in this, and having that in a Block War game. I don't know. To me, it brings out a little bit of extra narrative where you're not just kind of launching an attack. Like, I'm sending in 2nd and 3rd squad of 1st platoon, and man, I'm hoping for the best. Like, they're going to charge this farm, and hopefully they can get those guys out of the assault. And it's just a cool feeling to have in a Block War game. Again, something you just don't normally see. So that's something I really enjoy about this game, is the scale. So that's, again, something to look for. There might be other Block War games at this scale. I've not seen any. So that's something that this game offers that's actually very different. It's just that little feeling in the narrative and the scale. To me, the command structure feels very real. Like, this platoon commander can only control these 3. And because it's at that scale, you're like, yeah, this guy can literally only command these guys because he's got his little radio and that's what he can, control. When it's at this huge abstract scale, it's kind of like, okay, he's in charge of those guys, and they move along. I just think that it's done really well in this. And basically, you have all of your units out on the board, but all of your little HQ blocks, you keep them off board, and you just activate them however you choose to do it. And that's how you kind of go back and forth. I activate this group, you activate this group, and so you can kind of be reactive as, okay, the enemy's activating this guy, these guys can't move again, so maybe I'll try and do this other thing, and I'll use this other platoon to attack them later. So again, layers and layers of just nuance that make a game like this very fun, but also a really good step up from some of the lighter war games out there. This, I think, that would be considered a decently light war game. You got 12 pages of rules. It's nothing insane. The rules are very approachable and very easy to manage. But you get just a step up from some of the games that you'll see just kind of on the store shelves. This is one where I'm starting to become a war gamer. So that's an exciting game I think this is a really good launch-off point for your kind of, oh, what's my next war game, as a step up from some of those very introductory ones. So I would recommend that for this. And the style, this block style, to me is something outside of playing Stratego, a lot of new war gamers haven't seen this kind of thing. They'll see a lot of hex and counter type stuff and conflict of heroes, or other kind of supposedly introductory war games. This gives you a totally different type of war game. So again, that's something that I think is a really does its disservice to kind of the hobby, so to speak, just to provide this kind of a scale, this kind of a game that has a surprising amount of detail in it when you really think about it. So to newer players, because this one, it uses a series of D10s they give you. So many games use a D6. The D10 provides the game and the pieces and the different weapons more variability. So a tank is going to roll D10s and they're going to hit on like a 7 or less, for example. A rifleman's going to roll D10s and hit on a 2 or less. You might have jeeps with machine guns on them hitting on like a 4 or less. Things like that. So I think the dice give you a more realistic outcome with certain weapon types. I don't know. I think I like dice and how they play into a game. I think that this tells a lot about how much they thought about that in the design process. It just this extra layer of not all weapons are created equal, and here's how you can kind of show how different they are with the different ranges you can get a wider variety of results on a D10. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So that's an interesting part. Now, combat in this game is a little bit different from some of the other block war games, because in a lot of Columbia's games, they have like a fire priority. So you've got like a unit that has like an A on it, and an A unit's going to fire before a B unit, and a B unit's going to fire before a C. And so when you reveal your units, you kind of line them up in their kind of fire priority and just go down the line doing all your shooting. That's how I do it anyway. That's kind of how a lot of their games work. And you even see that in things like Space Empire's 4X from GMT. They do the same thing. They have fire priority, you line them all up, do all your hits. So if you've got really good units, they can take out some of the weaker enemy units, so they'll never be able to fire on me. And you can kind of get into some pretty significant situations if you can do that, where you can wipe an army out. If you have like really good units that can fire before they can even get a shot off. So this doesn't have that though. This one, when I put my HQ down and I'm activating this platoon, we're gonna do a fire combat. Basically, I choose the order in which my guys fire. So you get a bit more tactical choice about that, instead of it just being kind of predetermined by what units you have. And it just gives you a bit of freedom, so you're not tied down to, I've got to get my like amazing A priority guys over there, or like, these guys are all Fs, they're never going to be able to fire. You don't have that in this one. It removes a little bit of the kind of the handcuffs that you might have from that, and gives you a little bit, it just gives you some freedom. So if you want to shoot your tank first, shoot your tank first. If you want to shoot your anti-tank first to try and knock their tank out, then you might, use your rifleman to kind of mop up whatever's left. Now, the difference here is there's a couple different types of combat. The kind of combat where you reveal everything and line them all up and do all your fire back and forth. You don't really have that here. You have, when you move in and you do assault together, there's stacking limits, but that's where both sides kind of get revealed, and defender's going to fire first, and you kind of do all your fires, and it's kind of an exchange of fire, so to speak. So you do have that, but it's slightly different. But a lot of kind of fire combat you'll do from range, and you don't reveal the enemy unit. I have to reveal my firing units, so that I have to be honest about the dice that I'm rolling, basically. But you're firing then at a hex. So I'm shooting at the hex, and I don't get to choose which units gets the hits. the opponent gets to choose who gets hit and what. Now, if you're firing against units that have already been revealed, that's when you can start targeting. So I can say, okay, if we're all revealed, well, my dude is going to shoot this rifle squad, or he's going to shoot this tank. So that's where you're going to start getting into. You want to try and do that when you've got your anti-tank gun. You want to make sure you're attacking the tank, for example. And there's some strategy in how you get that done and when to be opportune about that. But it was a little bit new, just compared to some of the other games of theirs that I played. So I had to read those rules just to really make sure I was understanding them correctly. Because normally you're like, I do an attack, let's reveal all the units and do it. It's kind of what I was expecting. But this one has that again in assaults, but that fire combat is actually I think it's really cool. And also, I feel, very realistic. Because you'll have guys in terrain, enemies sat in some trees, holding down this kind of town in the middle of the map, and you're just shooting from range, shooting your rifles, firing mortar firing. You don't really know what you've done. You're just kind of hoping for the best. You know, when you're shooting MGs, just kind of dagger, 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 shooting into a forest, hopefully you're hitting the foxholes and hopefully you're hitting enemy targets. You don't know. You know, they're going to flip over and do some hits, but you don't know what you're hitting necessarily, or how badly you're hitting if they're kind of moving them around kind of thing. And again, it just keeps that fog of war there for just that little bit longer. You can't do a big attack and know, yeah, I got that rifleman down from like a 3 to a 1. That means he's really weak. You know, it might be that rifleman went down to a 2 and, you know, that bazooka team went from a 2 to a 1. You just never know. You can't pick what you're shooting in the hex. You just shoot the hex and kind of hope for the best. And as all things are in this game, it's just about trying to overcome that fog of war, and hopefully you roll well. That's a big part of it. But hopefully you're moving in such a way where, you know, you can get into assaults to get numbers and get them overwhelmed, and you can see what you're doing, or, you know, get a lucky roll here or there, and, you know, you might take out a target and you're like, they're weak, I've got 3 guys against 1 block, I'll move in because I know I'm probably going to have some good odds there and have a good chance of getting them out. But you know, coming back to it, I had a great time with the command structure of this. Combat's super fun, chucking dice, doing the losses. That's always a very simple, clean way of doing combat. I enjoy that a lot. But I want to say that having the different commanders of the different units and subunits, that was really fun. I enjoy command structure. I like to play Fields of Fire, where that command structure is really important about how you communicate orders. And, you know, this is not Fields of Fire, but, you know, being able to see and to visualize, my platoon commander can activate this platoon, and he is a platoon commander. And you're like, well, my company commander can do a little bit more, but not as well. And he can't activate certain things. He can't activate another HQ, for example. But being able to do that, it gives new players some kind of hands-on with seeing how a command structure would play out. It's not necessarily the most detailed thing in the whole world, but I think that's an excellent learning tool for new players, people who are new to wargaming. So that's something that I really appreciated in this game. The other things which are fascinating in this one is the actual board itself. And you can see very clear, but the terrain has stacking limits within the hex, but they have firing limits through hex sides. And that's, again, something that is going to, you know, carry you well if you learn it here into other war games. You know, terrain defense, if you're in like a farm or like a building, you know, they need 2 hits to reduce a guy 1 step, for example. That's very simple, but your fire limits are fascinating in this one. And it's kind of all on this terrain effects chart, which is just on the map, nice and easy, on the back of the rules. But you have, if you're doing fire combat through a clear hex side, you have, it's a fire limit of 2, so you have 2 units fire across it. if you're firing, for example, through, do they have another? What do they call it? They call it a hedge. Yeah, they call it a hedge. So through a hedge, if a whole side is a hedge, you can't shoot through it. There's a fire limit of 0. But a lot of the hedges might have a gap in it where there's like a path. Then you have a fire limit of 1. And you think about it, if you got a big long hedge and there's a gap for a road with like a gate in it, you could get a squad to fire across there. But having a couple squads, you're looking at 20 dudes. You're not going to have 20 dudes like lined up around a road trying to fire down a small country lane. It's just, like, pragmatically speaking, that's bad doctrine to have you bunched up in that way. So the hex side fire limits mean you have to be really careful about where you bunch guys and where you limit them, because you might, there's no point in stacking, maxing out your stack limits if you can't use those. So some places you have, like, you can have 3 guys in there, but only one guy might be able to fire across this hex side, and you're like, what are the rest of these guys doing? So it gives you an impetus to spread out your formation, not too much, because you've got to be in your command range if you're platoon commander, so you can't just willy-nilly go all over the map. And those fire limits, there's also a hex side move limit as well, so you've got to be careful you don't run into that too much too. That's how you get into kind of some traffic jams and things, and then you're kind of at the mercy of your opponent if you can't move you guys, because you can't overstack in this one. So there's just some really neat details in this game. So the positioning feels to me like a tactical man-level team game kind of thing. I play Combat Commander, where I put my little team of like 2 or 3 riflemen is really important for how I want to make an attack. And I feel like you get this in this game, even though the scale is kind of a step further back than that, where a block is, a full squad. So there's a lot to like in this game. I am looking for more of it, honestly, because it's a fun game, and I think a lot of people can enjoy this. But there's just so much more. There's so much potential here for more. Because the game comes with a couple maps, it comes with 8 scenarios. Now, this is just West Front 1944 to 45. I mean, think about how many other games you could make with this, right? You could have an East Front game if you're so inclined. You could have Italy, you could have North Africa, you could do a Pacific game. So very easy to kind of make those and to, have some nuance and flavor in your units and their different firepowers and how those kind of stack up. But even to make an expansion for this, a couple more maps, and that's the difficult part, I think, is making good balanced maps. A couple maps, a bunch of scenarios on those maps, sticking maps together, making some big games if you wanted to. That's, I think there's an exciting future for this game if they wanted to go down that route. But if not, you've got a great game and a great box. It has a solo option, but it's kind of like you randomize the order that the enemy goes, and you kind of just play the other side, and you don't really remember what they have. It's okay, but a block war game warrants having another player. That's how you're going to get the best out of the game. And because they're designed for another player. So that you get the bluffing, you get the feinting, and all of the deception. That's my favorite part of these style games. So get yourself another player, pick up Combat Infantry. There's a ton of stuff to like in this game. It's not just dudes. You've got all your extra support weapons and battalion assets. You can call in airstrikes. You've got big tanks. You've got flamethrowers coming in. There's some great fun to be had here in a very easy to learn game. The games themselves do not take very long. Probably the shortest you could play was maybe 45 minutes. So you could play a game for 2 hours, but I think if you were really slow, because each game is like 6 or 7 turns long, it's really not that much. And it forces you to get in there and get it done because of that time limit. So the games can be pretty fast and furious. So that's, to me, ideal for new players. I say it's a short game compared to a lot of the other war games we play. I'll happily sit down for 3-4 hours and play like a really big game. This is a quick playing and quick time game as well. So, beer and pretzel style war game, you're just going to have a lot of fun playing this. But for newer players, I think you're going to learn a lot as well. And for experienced players, you're just going to sit here, have a good old time doing this, and kind of experimenting and finding the nuances in this design, because I think Tom did a great job putting this together. The product's great, and I have a fun time playing this. Grant loves war games too, block war games specifically. So we're always like, ooh, what's the next block war game we got our hands on? Just because the hidden aspect is such a fun part of wargaming to me, and it's just a very refreshing change from a lot of the open hexes and open face counters that we play with. This just gives you just a fun game, just a fun tactical game, and I appreciate that in a war game. I appreciate that in a board game. I want it to be enjoyable, and this ticks that box with a big resounding tick. So appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been Combat Infantry, and this is West Front 1944 to 45 from Columbia Games. Still available on their website. They have a ton of other block war games as well. Check those out too. They have some really famous ones like Hammer of the Scots, which I shamefully have not played. But Richard III's an excellent one. I mean, they have a ton of games, and they're constantly putting more out through Kickstarter and pre-ordering that way. They just revamped Victory in the Pacific, which I'm going to play here real soon. And I think they're working on what's the new one? I can't remember what it's called, but they're working on a new one right now. There's a ton of stuff from them, but this is a very interesting scale, a very interesting level, and a very different feel of a block war game from that standpoint. So I recommend it for that reason alone, just to experience a tactical style game as a block war game. It was a very different experience for me and a very enjoyable one. So again, appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayers8.com.